What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Read College Football Week 4 edition. Special show today. We're doing two guests. As you can see, we are joined by Thor Nystrom of bettingpros.com, the creator of the ATL, the adjusted Thor line. Thor does a ton of great content for him, so make sure you follow him on Twitter at ThorKU. We're going to talk some power rating adjustments heading into conference play and the such, and then talk about our game of the week, our marquee matchup, Tennessee versus Florida. And then we're going to bring on Cody Williams from BetSided to break down the rest of the Week 4 card, including some Big Ten plays and some weeknight plays on Thursday and Friday because we have some college football that's taking place during the week. So, Thor, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going well. Good to be with you. Happy to talk some college football.
Yeah. So, Thor, like I said, you create the adjusted Thor line, your power ratings and such, and it's kind of a great debate in the betting community on how much do you weigh priors? When do you start adjusting in the 2022 data points? And each team's played around 3-4 games. Is this the week where you start to transition through? Because that's when I start to lean a little bit more in because you see teams, you see what's on the field. The numbers are starting to tell a story of the team. How do you weigh it going into week 4?
It's a great question. This is where the percentage of what you're waiting for this season begins to jump, right? Like after week 1, I think in my thing, it's only 10%. The first game, 90% the year before. Then you're maybe up to 25% after the second game. Now we're starting to jump up where it's way more than half, and pretty soon we're going to be at 100% of this year's results. Wanted to even, and this is a philosophical, you mentioned philosophical.
Yeah.
A philosophical thing for this year with people putting together power rankings is over the offseason, as you know, we had unprecedented player movement. So the aggression to which you fold in this year's results over last year's, it's going to be even more aggressive this year. And so I was talking about that with our data scientists at work, who were the ones that work on the systems. I have a total one as well, and talking about we need to be more aggressive with baking in the percentages for this year, this season in particular, because of that unprecedented movement. Where last year, for some of these teams, it's not quite as relevant what they did last year because they had a totally different staff and a totally different roster.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, you see like week 1, for example, maybe a team, bad matchup, lays an egg, something happens. And then you see week 2 and week 3, it kind of normalizes more to where you expected the team to be. And now that all makes sense. And now you start to weigh that into your week 4 rating. You've seen enough on the field and you start to get more of a legitimate number, in my opinion. So yeah, I agree 100%. I'm at around, I think like 55% this season, where I still weigh the priors because, there still might not be a full story told yet, but it's starting to take over a little bit more. So I completely agree with you. So I'll ask you this. Who's one riser and who's one faller based more on this season's profile, maybe weighed against your priors?
Well, one of them is Nebraska, and you might be surprised to hear that because Nebraska had the bad record last year. But as you know, Nebraska's second order wins were way above what their actual win total was last year. It's like every single game they were losing by 3 points, but the post-game win expectancy, they'd be at 60%, 65%, whatever. So last year's profile for Nebraska was actually quasi-impressive. And the more that they lose that by this year, nothing has been impressive. They didn't blow out the FCS team. They lost to a Northwestern team, which we now know that Northwestern team is garbage. They lost to Georgia Southern, who just got smacked around by UAB, I think. Yeah, I mean, not a great team either. So them losing or them gaining more and more in their profile of the percentage from this year is going to hurt them more and more as we go along. They dropped 15 spots, my power ratings this week. Miami dropped 13 spots. They got a little bit unlucky against it. Or I don't know if I want to say unlucky, but they were the first team since the year 2000 to have more than 20 first downs without scoring an offensive touchdown in that game. Yeah. So we'll have to see if they can figure it out on offense. But those are a couple ones. Toledo dropped 13 spots when they got drop kicked by Ohio State. Some of the teams that jump on the other side, I don't know if you know, I went to the University of Kansas for undergrad. They were my biggest jumper this week. They jumped 19 spots in my rankings up to 64. After beating Houston. Week before you beat West Virginia. The more that last year's results get sloughed off, and then you're just counting this one, the more that Kansas is going to jump.
Yep.
This coming week, they play Duke at home. After that, they play Iowa State and TCU at home. This is a team who has a real shot to be 6-0, which is just absolutely crazy. But yeah, I mean, you'll bake those things in more. And then a couple teams like lower on down. UNLV was a big jumper this past week. Tulsa. and Tulane would be three, probably the three biggest G5. They were the three biggest G5 jumpers in my system.
Yeah, I think you make a great point on Kansas. We're going to talk about them in a little bit, but Lance Leipold comes in last year, and you know this very well, from Buffalo, comes in after the spring game. So I kind of gave him a mulligan going into this season. Like, this was his first real season coaching a full off season, really entrenched there, and it's paying off dividends. Guy was a great coach at Buffalo, and now he's doing great work in Lawrence. And then for UNLV, and I was going to ask you this, the Mountain West might be wide open this year. Air Force drops a game at Wyoming last week, and Fresno State, they lose Jake Haener. It said Jeff Tedford said it was only a high ankle sprain. He might be out 4 to 6 weeks, but they're about to start conference play. So I had a preseason future dart on San Jose State at long odds. UNLV, I know they're now sitting inside 20-1 or so, but that Mountain West might be wide open. And UNLV, you make a great point. They are one a friend of the show because I bet them against Cal 2 weeks ago, but they look very, very impressive. They have a lot of transfer talent and starting to show, like you said, in the ratings. So those are two I think worth kind of expanding on. And now let's turn it, though, into our marquee matchup, because I think talking about Tennessee and Florida from this idea of how do you rate them in 2022? Because Tennessee comes in with a lot of expectation this season. Year two of Josh Heupel. Hendon Hooker looked great. Is he a dark horse Heisman candidate? And they've lived up to the hype so far. They beat up on their 2 cupcakes, and then they went to Pitt and won in overtime. Not an easy place to play whatsoever. Florida, on the other hand, we don't really know what you're getting into with Billy Napier first year. They get that big win over Utah. They look amazing. And it's all been downhill from there. They lose the disheartening game to Kentucky. They should have lost to South Florida last week. They're now going on their first true road game to Knoxville. The place is going to be rocking. How do you rate these two teams specifically? Because I think it's an interesting conversation because Florida already looks like they're trending in the wrong direction.
They sure do. Yeah. Indiana, if you look at second order wins, Indiana has been the luckiest team in the country. I think they're plus 1.6. They're a 3-0 team that should be 1-2. Florida is a team that is a 2-1 team that absolutely could be 0-3. Their second order win, differential isn't quite as high, but they've been super duper lucky. Like you said, I watched that whole USF game. USF almost had them dead to rights there, and they pulled it out at the end. Utah was the same sort of thing where they were down. If Richardson hadn't put on the cape, and if there hadn't been a wonky call in the end zone on the end at the interception, or a no call, it seemed like it should have been maybe a pass interference. Mm-hmm. That game could have flipped too. So I think Florida is a little bit puffed up just by their record, which is better than objectively it should be. Tennessee, we haven't seen them against too many legitimate opponents, like you're saying. Like the one game was at Pitt, but you mentioned it. Like Pitt gave them a lot of trouble. Yeah. Tennessee needed to overcome Pitt at the very end of that game to pull it out. Pitt was leading for a large swath of it. But I do trust Tennessee more. Just looking at at this specific game, when the line dropped, it actually dropped in single digits, which I was surprised about. Insane. Yeah, and the sharp bettors very quickly made Vegas pay for that and hammered Tennessee right out of the gate. Went from 9.5, all the up to 11 now. That's the fair line. My line on this game is Tennessee minus 10.5. But I trust Tennessee even more and Florida even less than probably my numbers do.
Yeah.
So if it was me, I'd probably have this thing closer to Tennessee by 14. A couple keys for me. Tennessee does have a couple injury things that you have to look into. You need to know if Cedric Tillman and Jabari Small, but particularly Cedric Tillman, what their status is coming into this week. They also had a couple cornerbacks out in their last game, particularly Warren Burrell. We got to check on his status, see if he's playing this week. And then on the other side with Florida, starting right tackle was out last week. And then the more important one, Ventrell Miller. Whenever Ventrell Miller is in the lineup, Florida's defense plays way up. I'm not talking about this year. I'm talking about going back multiple years. They play way up. Whenever Ventrell Miller is out of the lineup, that defense plays way down. If Ventrell Miller is not on the field on Saturday, Florida might be in some deep trouble.
Yeah, I think that when you talk about Florida, doesn't Anthony Richardson, since that week 1 game, something looks off with him? Is he, first of all, he's a very injury-prone player from his 1 year last year. He got hurt in very limited action. I think he might be, there's something off with him. The accuracy is off. He's not taking off and running as much. There's something off there. But now as we kind of turn the page to talk about this matchup, Tennessee a minus 11 favorite, like you said, total hovering around 62.5. This is a different situation that Florida's been in the past 2 games. They were a considerable favorite against Kentucky. They were a massive favorite against South Florida. And Billy Napier's MO from Louisiana Lafayette was great as an underdog. Guy's a cash cow when it comes to covering the spread as a dog. Is this now the situation he wants to be in where the expectation isn't to win with margin? It's actually to play up to your competition and maybe stay alive and, get your, motivate your team. So that's why I, like you said, your number, I think you said 10.5 for Tennessee?
Yep,
or 12.
10.5, yep.
My number is out to 13, but I'm not rushing to lay it with Tennessee just because of that Billy Napier. They're back in this underdog spot. I'm not rushing to play against this because there is talent on this Florida team. Even if they are a little banged up, we'll see what happens. So, Thor, I will turn to you here. Total 62.5, Tennessee minus 11. Where are you going here?
This is the play that I actually like in this game. I do like the over. My total on this game, my system's total is 72. So I'm showing an overlay of almost 10 points towards the over. And then if Ventrell Miller's not playing, you have severely compromised Florida's defense in addition to that. But, Heupel and Tennessee, they're going to want to get out and run and turn this game into a basketball game. I don't think that Florida is going to be able to stop that. And like I mentioned as well, Tennessee has some concerns with the health of their cornerbacks. You want to check on that as well. But I just feel like this game script is pointing at an over type thing. That's just where I think it's going to go. Yeah. With Richardson, your point is well taken. High variance player. The one thing he had to clean up was his accuracy. In the first game, it was like all that, especially in the second half at the end of it, it was like that stuff was all gone. And he was just that first round guy that we wanted him to be. But it was unrealistic to expect that second half against Utah, Anthony Richardson was going to be the Anthony Richardson that we got then for the next 11 games this season. Yeah. So you are going to get those peaks and valleys, unfortunately. And sometimes you're going to have those lesser performances against a bad team like USF, which allows them to pull up and then be competitive with you. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm looking the same way as you. I'm not going full game over. I'm going Tennessee team total over. I just the implied total, it's around 36.5, 37.5. I have not seen this total drop yet, but anything below 38, I think, is my look in this game, just because I don't know if I could trust Florida's defense. You make a great point about the Tennessee secondary. Maybe they're a little banged up, but I agree with you. This reeks of track meet. This reeks of Tennessee. They play at one of the fastest tempos in the entire country on a plays per minute basis. They're going to want to run. They have the weapons on the outside to challenge Florida. I just can't see Florida keeping Tennessee's offense off the field and then Tennessee not scoring. So I'm with you on the over. I just trust Tennessee's unit a little bit more. So I'm going strictly team total over. So there's our Tennessee-Florida breakdown for you. Me and Thor both looking similar way here. Thor's on the full game over, 62.5. I'm looking at the team total over, that 36.5, 37.5 range. Anything 38 or below works for me. Thor, before I let you go, I want to talk underdogs. We're always looking for, something live. Yours might be a little bit aggressive, maybe not on the money line, but I want to ask you, who's your favorite underdog look this week? You're looking on Friday night. Yeah, it's funny. Like the underdogs I like this week are, you're sort of alluding to it, like the crappiest teams in the nation, like the hold your nose and jump teams. One of the big discrepancies that my system found in terms of the numbers early on this week was Nevada heading to Air Force. That the line on that game, I actually don't have the live lines in front of me, but my line is Air Force minus 21.5. It at least was 25 before. I'm expecting 20, that thing. It's
24. 24 is the market number.
Oh, apparently some sharps agree with me on back in Nevada. Okay. So that line's come down by a point over the last 24 hours. I do like Nevada in this game. Nevada, usually you have this problem with going from the one opponent to playing the triple option team. Well, last week, Nevada played the closest thing to a triple option team that's not a triple option team in Iowa. It's the same downhill, run every single play. They acquitted themselves okay against Iowa. They didn't score a point, but at least in terms of, run fits and stuff like that, not giving up the explosive runs, they did that. I think it was 27-0.
27-0, yeah.
Yeah, 27-0. But Nevada's a bit more, I don't know how to put this. It's going to be sort of feigning with damn praise, but they're better than I thought they would be, because I thought they would be like literally a bottom three team in the country when everybody left. But this Nevada team is running more than the last one. Norvell was all the throw, Carson Strong, Romeo Dubes, et cetera, et cetera. Now the running back Tua Tawa, he gets 20 plus touches every single game. they're doing a better job, at least. They're not as nearly as good, of course, but they're doing a better job of trying to control the clock and situational football, stuff like that. I also think their defense is just a little bit better than I thought. And the other point I want to make is the NCAA rule change over the offseason where they banned the cut blocks outside the tackle box. The teams that really, really hurt was the military academies running the triple option. And we have seen this manifest in some of the games already. Those teams aren't playing as good as we thought they were going to play. Navy lost to effing Delaware at home, and you look at some of the, like last week, Air Force got upset by Wyoming. Yeah. So I don't think the power rankings have accurately baked in the amount to which that rule change has hurt the triple option teams. Laying an enormous number like this, you're really taking a chance if you're doing it with one of those teams where the game script is going to be run and you know that they're a little bit compromised by these rule changes. And just since that one is not a money line one, to be clear, I'm not picking Nevada to upset them. Do like them with the points, but I will give you another one where it's a money line
bonus pick,
and it's an even worse team. I like Hawaii to go into New Mexico State, the true toilet bowl matchup of the season.
That is the worst matchup on the board this week.
of the season, arguably. Those are two of the bottom three teams in my power rankings in the entire country. FIU, I'm sorry, is the third one. But I think Hawaii is the better team. I've happened to watch a bunch of New Mexico State so far. Actually, a bunch of Hawaii too, because you always watch them because they're the only one on super duper late. But New Mexico State, like they played Minnesota in the opener. I watched all of that one because I'm coming to you live from Minneapolis. And then one of the other New Mexico State games, I ended up watching just a ton of.
Against Nevada.
Against Nevada. That's exactly it. Especially on offense, they make your eyes bleed. Mm-hmm. It's one of the worst FBS offenses that I've ever seen. They don't have talent at the skill positions. They don't have talent on their offensive line is an abomination. And the quarterback that they thought was going to make up for all of it is this kid they signed named Diego Pavia, who was a good JUCO quarterback last year. Diego Pavia should not be quarterbacking in FBS.
They need the other kid. They need the other kid. He's great.
Frakes is okay. Frakes can at least push the
transfer.
Yeah, he can at least push the ball down the field a little bit, and he can move a little bit. But I mean, he's no great shakes either. They should go, or no great Frakes, if you will. They should definitely go with him going forward. But either way, Hawaii definitely objectively has more talent than they do. They should be, their receiving core is actually pretty good at Hawaii. We'll see if now the quarterback can get them the ball. But they finally pulled the plug on Brendan Schrager. I think now they're going with Joey Yellen. I don't know if they've announced anything else, but Chang has been trying some different stuff. He's going to hit on something eventually where they'll at least be able to beat the dregs of the FBS. And I think that this is a good opportunity to do it. I think Hawaii should be favored. My numbers do too.
Yeah, high variance team. Like maybe just forget the point. Just take the money line, get a bigger payout that way. Yeah. So Thor, you said earlier that you upgraded Kansas and you went to Kansas, and I understand that. I can't lay this many points with them against Duke. I understand the situation. I'm taking Duke at over a touchdown. I make this game closer to 6 with Kansas. And I think that there's something to be said that Kansas beat West Virginia and beat Houston as considerable underdogs. This is a complete change of script for them. Now they're expected to win. And I'm not saying Kansas is bad. I'm not saying Duke is going to win or anything. But just within a score, and this is a Duke team that went to Northwestern, who also may not be that great, but they went to Northwestern and won. And I watched the entire game. Pretty conservative. They were the much better team that day. Mike Elko has this defense humming. The offense looks good with Riley Leonard. And I looked this up. Kansas, 7 straight losses, 7 straight non-covers as a favorite. The last time they won outright as a favorite against an FBS team, 2014. So this is a rarity for the Jayhawks. I understand that they are trending in the right direction, but I'm going to be going against them here. This is just over a touchdown. This looks like a closer than expected, probably a higher scoring than expected game too. I think each team could probably break high 20s, maybe 30. So Thor, I will let you tell me why Kansas is going to lay the smackdown on Duke. By the way, game day should have been there.
Game day absolutely should have been there. Yeah, I mean, the week before you're in Boone to watch Appalachian State and Troy, and now you can't cover a game between two undefeated Power 5 teams.
2 basketball teams.
Come on. And Kansas also has a BCS bowl win in the last 15 years. I'll remind everyone out there. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably with you. Unfortunately, my number on this game is Kansas minus 7.1. Okay. So I can't lay more than a touchdown, certainly. And it's more respect for Duke. Like, it seems like now Kansas is getting all the attention. deservedly so. They went on the road and they upset two at least decent teams on the road back to back. But like it's like nobody's talking about Duke now. Duke has also jumped up. And having to lay this many points, I agree with your assessment that I think that this is going to be a closer game one way or the other. I'm certainly hoping that Kansas for real pulls it out and goes to 4-0, but it's a difficult scenario. Like you said, last week was a difficult scenario and they overcame it, which is back-to-back road games as an underdog. They won both of them outright. But now, you flip it to the next week. And now for the first time in a decade, people are pumping your tires. It's good to be a Kansas football player. That all week on campus, they're going to be telling them how great they are, and they're gonna leave this month undefeated and all this sort of stuff. It's a tough proposition now, facing this Duke team that's way better than people think. You wouldn't expect Kansas to overlook them. I think it's probably pretty early for them to be putting on their king's cloak and everything like that. But it is a more difficult assignment, I think, than people are giving it credit for. And anything above a touchdown, I just can't get there laying with Kansas in that game.
Yeah, Duke, 7.8 yards per play. Kansas still allowing over 4 points per drive. So I think Duke's offense could get some here. And even if they go down, that back door is going to be open for the Dukies. So that's my underdog play. So let's bring up that recap graphic here. We got Thor taking Nevada, catching 24 against Air Force. And then also bonus pick, Hawaii catching, I believe it was around like 5 against New Mexico State. I haven't looked at that one since yesterday. But then I also have Duke catching 8 over against Kansas. Anything over a touchdown is good to me. So there's our underdog picks. And Thor, I really appreciate you coming on that philosophical topic with power ratings. That was awesome. Marquee matchup talk with Tennessee, Florida was great. And then, of course, that underdog segment was probably pretty gross, but that's what it's all about here on the early read. So Thor, I appreciate it, man. Best of luck the rest of the season.
Hey, appreciate you, Reed. Good being on with you.
And there we go. We're going to transition now to the rest of the show with Cody Williams from FanSided. We're going to talk some midweek action now that college football is doing Thursdays and Fridays again, and do some Big Ten talk. And then if you have any questions, make sure you're asking them in the chat. We will get them at the end of the show. We'll answer as many questions as possible. So any bets you want to talk about, any bets you have, as Cody comes on the screen. Cody, friend of the program, at the Sizzle20 on Twitter. Cody, how's it going, man?
Going well, man. I'm footballing right now, but get ready.
Yeah, there we go. So, Cody, I appreciate you coming on. So we have a handful of bets to get to. We're going to start with, we called this in the first week, and then they kind of slowed up, but we're back with Thursday and Fridays, but the appetizer, kind of getting you ready for the weekend. So, Cody, I'll start with you. You're looking at a Friday night matchup, I believe. Yep, you're looking at a Friday night matchup. So what are you looking at? Syracuse versus Virginia.
Points with Syracuse. Syracuse minus 10. I have watched. Actually, I'm from ACC country, so I'm a big. And these two offenses, I don't want to be able to match up offensively with some. Syracuse is averaging BPA per play, BPA margin per play. They're clicking on both sides of the, and we can't rule that out either. This is a Robert Syracuse. He wants to stick it to the defensive coordinator, replace him with Tony Elliott. Performance he put forth with Clemson's offense. Get me started on that. And a Virginia team that I think is just being this is a team that lost 24-3. Yep. And that Brennan Armstrong is a great quarterback. At the same time, like, this offense is just exciting about it. Besides the quarterback, I think that the fact that Illick and the way Robert and I has this kind of with Garrett Schrader and Sean Tucker role, is going to have enough stops to keep him with.
Yeah, no, I think that, this Cuse team, they're sneaky wagon building in Western New York. Everyone's talking about the Buffalo Bills. I'm talking about the Syracuse Orange. They win that thriller last week against Purdue. Shout out at the Real Otter, who's been blowing up my mentions, telling me that, Garrett Schrader for Heisman, Syracuse is a legit contender in the ACC. And you know what? I don't know if I'm going to go contender in the ACC, but this team has looked damn good so far. I'm with you on this game. I do like Syracuse, but I'm looking a little bit differently. I'm going to go under 54 and under 55. This has been kind of bouncing around in the 54 range. I like this all the way down to 51.5. So if you're not getting 55 or 54, that's okay. I still like this at 51.5. And Virginia, you mentioned Robert and I, offensive coordinator, goes from Virginia to Syracuse, and Virginia's offense has fallen off a cliff. 5th in yards per play last year. They're now down to 84th this season with the same elite quarterback in Brennan Armstrong. This is a rebuilt offensive line, and it's just not working. And I think Syracuse's defensive line has been fantastic so far. Top third of the country in defensive line yards. They're going to be pass rushing all game long. I think that you're going to see Virginia struggle to break 17 points, maybe 20 points. And on the other side, Virginia's defense has done a good job of limiting explosive plays. They're playing really tight games. And Syracuse, they're not running an up-tempo offense. They have a lot of talent, but they're a more methodical offense than expected. So I think they're going to see a lower than expected game, something in the range of maybe 27-17, 30-17 Syracuse. I think they get an easy victory here, but I think that the score line is going to be a little bit more under expectation here. So give me the under in that game. And then Cody, he likes Syracuse laying the points. So there's our appetizer segment. Like I just said, Cody laying 10 with Syracuse. I'm taking the under 55. And again, I like that down to 51.5. So plenty of room to get in on the under on the Syracuse-Virginia game. Let's transition, though, because if you could see behind me, I got the Wisconsin helmet. We're not going to be talking about my Badgers because I think they're in a lot of trouble against Ohio State. But we are looking the same place, though. So early game here in Ann Arbor, Michigan versus Maryland. Big Ten play. Again, start for about half the conference this week. Cody, what are you looking at?
I am laying the points audio better now.
You're cutting a little bit in and out.
Okay. I will try and fix that before I speak out on this pick. Are we going to let Maryland? They did this last year. They started 4-0. It's their best win right now. And then they played Iowa and Ohio State.
Here, wait, Cody.
80.
I'm just going to cut you off just because you keep cutting in and out. So if you just want to jump out, I'll share some similar sentiments, and then we'll bring you back in when we get the audio stuff fixed. So Cody was at least trying to say Michigan laying 16 actually against Maryland. I completely agree with Cody here, though. Michigan, to me, this is a top 5 team. They went to J.J. McCarthy, and while they haven't been tested just yet, they played Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, probably 3 of the worst 15 teams in the country. I still think Michigan rolls here at home. I mean, Maryland under Mike Locksley against top 10 teams, 1-5 against the spread. And he's lost by an average margin of 36.8 points. This is a Maryland team that likes to beat up on poor competition, and they have a lot of talent there. But when it's time to play against the big boys in the Big Ten, the Ohio States, the Michigans, they get blown out off the field. So I like Michigan laying. It's dropped down to 16. I still like it at 16. I like this. I project this for Michigan minus 19. So I like this with room to go. So make sure you secure that under 17, minus 17. But I like Michigan minus 16. Cody, let's try it again. Let's see if we could get some better audio here.
I ditched the air. Am I better now?
Let's try again. You're almost better.
Okay.
No, still cutting out a little bit.
Anything better?
All right. So if you want to jump out one more time, we'll work on that behind the scenes. It happens, audio issues, the beauty of a video stream show here. But anyway, so Michigan, again, like I said, Maryland doesn't really hold up against elite competition. I think Michigan at home with J.J. McCarthy. I think this offense wants to hum. That's why they went to McCarthy. Now Cade McNamara's hurt. This is J.J. McCarthy's offense, and I think you're going to want to see Michigan really run it up here, really make a statement that, hey, we plan on being 11-0 going into that Ohio State game and setting up a potential Big Ten light game in the after Thanksgiving. So me and Cody are both laying the 16 with Michigan. And then we'll stick with the Big Ten talk as we wait for Cody to come in. I'll give it a bonus pick. I was going to give it on best of the rest, but I guess I'll talk about it because it is Big Ten-esque. I'm going to take Rutgers over a touchdown against Iowa. This total has dropped like an anchor. I'm going to go the total is at 34.5 now. Rutgers, New Jersey's football team. I just think that how are we trusting Iowa to win with margin on the road, no less, against a Big Ten opponent? I don't trust Spencer Petras whatsoever. And Rutgers defense, especially on in the ground game, has been successful this year. And I think that they could really hold up nicely and force Spencer Petras to make plays that I don't think he's capable of making. So to me, Iowa is they're set for a down year this year. And I like Rutgers to at least keep this close and maybe even be live for an upset. I just don't trust this Iowa team. And Cody's back. Let's try this again here. We got him.
Am I here? Am I clear?
I think you're here and clear. One more time.
Here, clear, and ready to go.
Okay, I think you're here. So let's try it again. So I was talking about how Maryland, and I think you were hinting on this too, but Maryland, they beat up on the lower level teams, and they're kind of a fraudulent team in my opinion, especially when they play up against their competition. So as an underdog, you don't think Maryland can hang?
I don't. We saw it last year. Their best win as they started, and that was the closest margin of victory that they had over that span. And then they played Iowa, which was a great offensive team, and then they played Ohio State, and they lost by a combined margin of 86 points. This fooled people at the beginning of the year, and I understand that Michigan has not been tested. Like, they had in college football to start the year, but at the same time, they also have taken their foot off the gas tremendously, like 2 quarters in a game, and he's looked phenomenal when he has touched the field. I don't think Maryland has a team. I think Michigan's has the best chance of any team they played to stop them defensively. They're underrated because of what they lost last year, but I think they just replaced it because that's what Jim Harbaugh does. And I think honestly, like, I don't have numbers. Like, I don't run numbers. This is just, basing off EPA. And I would bet this up to 23.5, honestly.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, listen, you also have Talia Tagovailoa, who incredibly talented, but he also plays himself into a lot of mistakes. He throws a lot of interceptable passes. Like, if Michigan's going to get out to a hot start, build like a 14-0 first quarter lead, this could go sideways very, very quickly for a Maryland team that, while talented, I just don't trust them against the elite of the Big Ten. So I'm totally with you here. So let's bring up that recap graphic again, even though me and Cody are looking the same place here in Ann Arbor, and I gave out a bonus pick while we were queuing up Cody's mic. So we're both on Michigan, laying 16. We both like this quite a bit. I'm also on Rutgers plus 7.5, a little bonus Big Ten action. If you want your eyes to bleed out, you could go throw that game on. Rutgers, Iowa, would total like 35.5. I mean, that's like 1920s football for you. But we're now going to move to our primetime segment. So one of the games a little later in the night, you're getting maybe a little, glass of whiskey sitting in for the night. And Cody, you're looking at one of the top teams in the country for your primetime play.
Yeah, I'm looking at Alabama, and they're playing Vanderbilt this week. Vanderbilt 3-1 already on the season, win total for the season already. Before we get to October,
anchor down, baby.
Love to see it. So, I mean, Alabama's going to score in this game. They always beat up on Vanderbilt. That's what they do. Shown anything that makes me think that they're going to, stop it. That's not the reason they're 3-1 to start the season. Northern Illinois and Elon. So I don't think that they're going to have many answers for Bryce Young. But has been that they have found some stuff offensively. Like, they've had two quarterbacks play, Mike Wright and Alan. I'm blanking on the second quarterback's name. Regardless, they've both been able to score, and they have a good run game. They have talented wide receivers. Will Shepard is who I was thinking of, wide receiver. Touchdowns through four games already. He's balling out. And granted, it's against inferior competition, but I think what's going to get us in this game is the fact that Vanderbilt's going to be able to contribute. That's what's happened in these games, winning 56-0. But I think Vanderbilt's actually going to be able to put points on the board in this game. And I think that is factoring in that we're looking at old Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt is improving even if they're not ready to compete.
Yeah, I think you need 10, 13 points from Vanderbilt. You need maybe one touchdown to probably aid getting this total over. So I can't hate the look here with Alabama. I mean, listen, we know Alabama's going to roll, but can they put up enough points in the process and get Cody a winner? So I don't hate that look. I might hate this look though. And so last week, my most confident pick, I was so ready. I had the spot circled. We did a social graphic about it. It was Fresno catching basically any number under the sun. I thought that they had a chance to win the game outright, and they ended up getting smoked by USC. but I'm putting on my makeup, my clown makeup. Let's get it going. I'm going back to the well with Oregon State. I'm going to take them getting points. It's currently 6.5, so I'm waiting. I'm going to hope that this gets to 7. If not, I will take it at 6.5. I think USC is maybe not. No, their offense is legit. They are a top 3 offense, but their defense is absolutely terrible. I watched that entire Fresno State game. They stopped Fresno on a 3rd and goal from the 5, and Fresno opted to kick. Not a good idea. But Fresno had the ball coming out of half, down 11 at midfield. Starting quarterback Jake Hayner suffers a serious leg injury. I believe it's now diagnosed as a high ankle sprain. Goes out for the game, and that was kind of it for me. They were down 11. Nothing happens. But even with their backup in, they were still going up and down the field on USC. This defense is terrible. And while the offense is fantastic, I'll take a team at home under the lights, a team that has a lot of momentum, that beat Fresno State, that beat Boise State, and Oregon State to hang with this team. I mean, just some numbers here, but USC's defense, 106 in yards per play allowed, 96 in explosive rush D this season. Oregon State, I mean, they like to run the ball, and they can run the ball damn well. So I think you're going to see the Beavers hang here. Same handicap as last week. I think that someone could go toe-to-toe with USC, and on the wrong night, this team could get beat. So wait for 7, but I will take 6.5 if that doesn't appear. Even 6, I will still take. I make USC about a 4-point favorite in this game. So while Caleb Williams and everyone is fantastic, USC is now out to like an 11+ turnover margin. They have not turned the ball over this year. I mean, when is the luck going to run out for this team? When is someone going to be able to challenge them and stay healthy and execute in the red zone? I think it's Oregon State who could win on the ground.
So I'm staying away from this game. Smart move, but
no, trust me, I'm gonna be broke by the end of the season fading USC. I'm telling you, it's gonna be miserable, but someone's got to do it.
Well, I was gonna say I lean to your side though. If I'm gonna have a lean in this game, I lean. But you're right. USC's defense has not been challenged, and the one reason why they had any modicum of success, they were able to get pressure. And Oregon State's offensive line is really good. They hand front pretty handily, and I would say Boise State has a better defensive front than USC does. I think USC is going to be able to get the pressure, so I think Oregon State's going to be able to move the ball. The way is kind of what you alluded to from the Fresno game when they got into a goal-to-go situation. I'm worried that Jonathan Smith might get too conservative, and you can't get conservative against this.
Yeah.
I don't think it's luck what this USC offense is doing. I think
I completely agree.
you have. I think it could come down to a coaching mistake, and that could really cost you the cover in this game. You kick 2 field goals against USC, and they win by 8.
Yeah, and you mentioned that against Fresno State, Jonathan Smith, untimed down 3, goes for the win at the goal line. He goes, hey, screw it. We're not going to overtime. We're going for the win. So like you said, that he might be hyper aggressive in this game and really try to, punch USC in the mouth, something that has not happened this season. So I'm taking Oregon State. Whatever. If I just lose all my money on USC, it's cool. So let's bring up that recap graphic, and then we'll get to some best of the rest. I'll power through these. But Cody's going with the over 59.5 in Vanderbilt, Alabama. Reed the Clown will be taking Oregon State, catching 6.5 against USC. Wait for 7. If it doesn't appear, take the 6.5. I still like it. But I wonder if there's some USC money coming in. Before we get to office hours, and if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat. We'll get to them in a sec. Cody, I got 3 more bets to just throw in here really quick. I'm going to go rapid fire. TCU -1 against SMU. TCU, of course, has Sonny Dykes, the former SMU head coach. He recruited that entire team. He knows everything there is to know about SMU. I think that coming off a bye especially, he's going to have this team ready to go. And one of the reasons why I bet TCU to win the Big 12 and their over win total is their defensive coordinator, Joe Gillespie, comes from Tulsa. He helped anchor 2 straight Tulsa wins over SMU. So I think that he has the goods to scheme it up here, especially coming off a bye. SMU just played at Maryland, kind of a tough spot for them. I know they're going to try and get hyped, but I think TCU is the better team. I make them over a field goal favorite. So TCU at anything like -120, -125, that works for me. Next, I had Clemson laying 7 against Wake Forest. Last year they played, and Clemson was a mess, and Wake Forest had a lot of hype. I bet on Wake Forest in that game. I was a fool there. Clemson smoked them by 21. Wake Forest was lucky to beat Liberty. They cannot run the ball this year. They're bottom 5 in almost every rushing statistic there is. Clemson's defensive line is going to win. It's going to force Sam Hartman to make plays that he's just not going to be capable of making against this Clemson defense. I know it's not that great betting on a DJ Ogungalale to make plays, but I like Clemson laying the points. I think they blow out Wake Forest. I think they win comfortably. And then last one, little money line parlay. I took two favorites. I like Auburn and San Jose State. Really quick, Auburn. I know they lost to Penn State, but the scoreline was a little bit more lopsided than expected. Only about like 100, 150-yard difference in total yards there. Auburn just too many turnovers, but I think they're going to attack on the ground with Tank Bigsby and Ashford, the kind of Swiss Army knife quarterback. I think Auburn just kind of beats up on Missouri, takes their frustrations out. And I'll put it with San Jose State. I think Western Michigan's terrible. Their only win this year, they beat a terrible Ball State team, and they were actually outgained by more than a yard per play in that game. San Jose State off a bye at home. Not the best travel spot for Western Michigan either. So that pays about like minus 115. So I like those two favorites. Cody, any other bets that you want to shout out before we get to some questions?
The big one that I'm looking at is Georgia first half minus 28.5. I hate the 28 to get, but I'm willing to lay it against Kent State. Kent State is terrible. They all over them in Washington. I mean, we realize now that Washington's good, but at the same time, Georgia's offense, and I don't think Kent State can get anything going offensively against this Georgia defense. So it's probably going to be in a position where they're going to be able to take their foot off the gas in the second half. So that's why I like the first half. And then the other one, this might be slightly biased because I am North Carolina, but I like UNC minus 1.5 over Notre Dame.
Okay.
I do not think of capabilities to keep up with Drake May and what he's shown. He has 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, and completion rate this season. He is the real deal. He is the good. Just because it's his first year starting, I don't care. It is a problematic team, and their defense is problematic. But at the same time, it does. Dame has played pretty bad defenses and still not been able to put points on the board. So North Carolina.
I think you make an excellent point there. I had Notre Dame last week. It was another play I gave on the show. It wasn't the best week for the show last week, but I thought Notre Dame was the side, and I can't. And I see Jerry Friedman in the comments. He was asking about that game, so I was going to bring it up, but you did my work for me. You brought it up yourself. So I don't have a side on this because UNC's defense is a bit concerning, and I'm afraid that that's going to wake up this Notre Dame offense. But Ply looks terrible. He looked completely in over his head. Maybe another game gets him going a little bit. So I'm a little nervous. The line's sitting like around a pick either way, minus one way. I don't have a strong opinion. I think I need to, stay off of this one for like my own sanity after watching Notre Dame last week. But I can't fault the play. I really can't, especially North Carolina off a bye. Great points about Drake May. I think that UNC, if they start to put it together on the defensive side of the ball, maybe live in the ACC, the Coastal Division, maybe, especially with like Miami might not be, as strong as expected. Pittsburgh, I think, is a little bit of a vulnerable team in the ACC. So I don't hate those looks, but great stuff from Cody. Let's get to some questions though. Jerry Friedman, big comments this week. So we're going to get to some of his, but he talks about this game, and I'm interested in this game too, and interested to hear about your thoughts, Cody. Michigan State, can they rebound as a live home dog? So here's Michigan State was going to be my Big Ten bet. The issue is I need to wait and see the status of Jaden Reed on the offense side of the ball. Michigan State was cooked by the time that game started. Without Reed, it's Peyton Thorne's favorite target. I need to see the injury report. And Mel Tucker is incredibly cagey when it comes to injury reports. So I need to wait and see what the status is. It sucks because I really like Minnesota this year. I'm on their over win total, and I was hoping to bet them at, I wrote in my notes, like, can I get Minnesota like +2, maybe like at a field goal, and then like take them as a dog as a road favorite. And while Minnesota's destroyed everybody, they really haven't played anybody just yet. They played, now I'm going to draw a blank on the third, but they played New Mexico State, Colorado, and I'm forgetting the third, but that just says it all. Michigan State, this is a team that thrived as an underdog last year. I think that this is a little bit of an overreaction. If we get a good injury report, I'm going to be on Sparty at home. I think that they do bounce back. Any thoughts there, Cody?
So I would Minnesota, but I'm probably staying with the Jaden Reed injury report because of Chris Bell being out for the season. With he got injured last. I just worry the passing offense from Minnesota is going to look like without him. I think that giving us the Minnesota team that we saw a few years ago when they were, threatening to win the Big Ten West. It's a revival, even if it has been against bad competition. And with the way Michigan State's defense looked last week, don't feel comfortable, taking any side with Michigan State right now with the way that defense looked against.
Yeah, to me, this is dog or pass here. I really, you mentioned the Autumn Bell injury, and he's a stud. I do think Minnesota is much better, but this is like a really, really big overreaction here. I think that, at most make this like a pick, but I do agree, though, if Michigan State can be banged up still, I agree Minnesota's very likely to win, but I'm not laying points on the road like that, especially, Big Ten. You never know what could happen. So one more question here, again from Jerry. Talking about Arkansas, Texas A&M, one of the more bigger games on the card. I lean Arkansas. I'm still not impressed with A&M. I think that their offense is so terrible. We were talking about that on last week's show before they played Miami. I had the under, just perfect. That was like easy. The defense is legit. The offense has problems, but Arkansas secondary really banged up. Catalon's out for the year. I do kind of like Arkansas, though, in their way. They can match the physicality of Texas A&M, something that Miami could not do. Tyler Van Dyke was running for his life. KJ Jefferson's a much different type of quarterback. He's going to run downhill, and he's going to take off, built like a linebacker. I kind of like Arkansas in the game. I'm not rushing to bet it, though. I'm going to see maybe a 3 pops. I believe market is like -2 right now. I'm going to bring that up as I'm talking, but I think Arkansas probably the side. No interest in the total, but I'm also kind of cool staying away from this one if it sits in like this dead number of 2. It's on a neutral field, mind you. This is not in College Station nor Fayetteville. This is on a neutral field. I believe it's in Jerry World in Cowboy Stadium.
Yeah, it's in Jerry World. Jerry Jones, famous Arkansas alum, going to be in attendance most likely. So, enough to fade the Hawks. But no, actually, I do lean towards Arkansas in this game. I think the line is actually an overreaction to Missouri State, putting a little scare. I mean, there were so many factors in that game. It's the Bobby Petrino return to Fayetteville. And that for all of Bobby Petrino's faults, the man knows how to coach an offense. And he's going up against a program familiar with. So when he kept on script for, 2.5, 3 quarters, that their offensive script for that entire time against a banged up Arkansas defense. And this sounds probably sacrilegious in some sects of college football, but I trust Missouri to do Texas A&M's offense right now.
Listen, I don't think you're crazy.
Like, that's where
I don't think you're crazy. I mean, listen, A&M makes a quarterback change. They try to revive the offense, and it wasn't anything. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I made this game I think around a pick on a neutral, maybe a little bit shade towards A&M. So again, this is Arkansas or nothing for me, but it's not one I'm dying to get involved with because, again, Arkansas is a little banged up, maybe wait for an injury report. If a 3 pops, I'm probably going to have to get involved in Arkansas. That's just too many points. But I totally agree with you. I mean, A&M's offensive play calling is abysmal. But on that note, we'll end on a happy note. Cody, I appreciate you coming on, battling through some audio issues, but we still killed it. We got through a bunch of games. We hit everything. So I appreciate you for coming on. Big shout out to Thor Nystrom, our prior guest, for coming on. Big shout out to Joanne Woodcock, our great producer and director behind the scenes. And while you're here, make sure you go like and subscribe to the BetSided YouTube channel. We do some great work. We have daily bet slip every day. Green on the Greens is back this week. Cody will be on that one as well. So make sure you check out all that great stuff by subscribing to the BetSided YouTube channel. And until then, make sure you're following me on BetStamp at RW33 for more plays. And until then, we will see you next Tuesday for college football week 5.